because so much stuff happened over the weekend, and specifically, so many news stories broke over the weekend and over the course of today, too, that have been both big stories and surprising stories, but they've all had some degree of, like, opacity or density to them that's made them hard to absorb. Nothing simple has broken over the last few days. And a lot of what's broken over the last few days is a really big deal. Just take this story out of Saudi Arabia, for example. This is potentially world-changing stuff. It is certainly Middle East-changing stuff. And I'm quite sure we don't know what's going to happen next here, but if what continues to happen in Saudi Arabia is anywhere near as momentous as what just happened there, this really could be the start of a whole new era in international politics and in international economics. The last Saudi king, King Abdullah, died in 2015. He was 90 years old. When he died, his half-brother took over as king. So the new king of Saudi Arabia is King Salman. Right away, though, in that transition, it was clear that might not be a long-term arrangement. And I don't mean that in a rude way. I just mean that King Abdullah was 90 when he died. King Salman, who replaced him, was 79 already when he took over. That was 2 years ago. He's now 81. In the couple of years that King Salman has been king, he has maneuvered aggressively to install his favorite son as his formal and obvious and powerful successor. And he picked his favorite son for that role when his favorite son was only 30 years old. The favorite son, the crown prince, is Prince Mohammed bin Salman, MBS. MBS is now 32 years old. He's very young. He's already been named the top economic advisor in the kingdom, the chief of the royal court in the kingdom, the defense minister of Saudi Arabia, and officially the guy who's next in line to be king. He had to jump over a bunch of his cousins in order to get that role. And we don't know what happened to set off what happened this weekend, but honestly, Saudi Arabia and the royal court and the line of succession and everything kind of turned into an action movie this weekend. It started off, bizarrely, with the prime minister of a whole different country resigning as prime minister of his country while he was in Saudi Arabia. The prime minister of Lebanon on Saturday announced he was stepping down as the Lebanese prime minister. And Lebanon is a whole separate country from Saudi Arabia, but mysteriously, the Lebanese prime minister announced in Saudi Arabia that he was stepping down. Why did that happen? I mean, if President Trump was going to resign from office, that would be momentous enough. If he went to Mexico to announce it, right? That said, that was really strange on Saturday. Nobody knew what that was about. But nobody had long to wonder about that, because hours after that super strange announcement, the Crown Prince, MBS, announced he was taking over the one part of the security forces in his country that hadn't yet been brought under his control. Then the kingdom announced that the Crown Prince, MBS, was now in charge of a brand new anti-corruption unit. And the first act of this new, previously unknown anti-corruption unit was to arrest and lock up 11 other princes, 4 currently serving ministers of the government, and dozens of ex-ministers. They literally emptied out the Ritz-Carlton in Riyadh and locked up all the princes there indefinitely. All members of the extended royal family in Saudi Arabia, which is a lot of people, all of them have been banned from leaving the country. Private jets are all being blocked at the airports and not being allowed out. And we don't know if this next part is related. In the movie version, it certainly would be. But hours after all the princes got arrested, one of the princes, who was apparently not available for immediate arrest, this was another former crown prince, another guy who'd been in line to be the next king at one point, hours after all those 11 princes got arrested and locked up, this other prince, former crown prince, ended up dead in an unexplained helicopter crash in the middle of the desert, just hours after all his cousins got arrested and locked up in the Ritz-Carlton. So we really don't know what all that is about. We do know, however, that our government is totally on board with whatever's happening. The crown prince who's arrested all of his cousins, locked them up in the Ritz-Carlton, appears to be consolidating power in a way that hasn't been seen in Saudi Arabia in 50 years at least. He, somewhat famously, visited President Trump in the Oval Office in March. That's President Trump and MBS. Less famously, he apparently hosted Jared Kushner last week, when Jared Kushner took an unannounced, under-the-radar trip to Saudi Arabia that we were not allowed to know he was on until he returned. David Ignatius of the Washington Post, who always has all the best dirt on Saudi Arabia. Today he reports that during Jared Kushner's unannounced trip to Saudi Arabia last week, Jared spent several nights staying up till 4 in the morning, plotting with MBS, with the Crown Prince. And Jared came home, and the Crown Prince launched his coup. So the Lebanese prime minister shocking everybody by announcing his resignation in Saudi Arabia, followed by the arrest of all the princes, followed by the death of one of the princes. That all happened in very quick succession on Saturday. President Trump then called the Saudi king the day after on Sunday. And whatever happened in that conversation, the White House gave a readout about what that discussion was about, made no mention that anything unusual at all was underway. No mention of the arrests, no mention that the entire Saudi royal family was being grounded and a large portion of them were now being held against their will. No mention of that, just a statement of support from President Trump and an announcement that the call had taken place. The president followed that up today on Twitter with this pronouncement that he believes the Saudi king and MBS, the Crown Prince, quote, "They know what they are doing." They may know what they're doing, but I wish we knew what they were doing. Particularly if this is the start of them going to war with Iran or something, it'd be good to know.